Thanks, everyone. During our journey in helping organizations with their HR transformation, I think one thing that we really try to bring forth is how can HR be a trusted advisor to business, which means that what we do in HR as a part of transformation, how does that really move the needle in terms of impacting business? Some of the challenges that we have seen and what the HR managers grapple with is the workforce is becoming increasingly diverse, mobile, global. How do we actually have common processes, especially now that most of the solutions are SaaS solutions? How do we have common harmonized processes across the organization? How do we comply with GDPR, data security requirements? That's increasingly becoming important. The way we evaluate talent has changed. It's more of agile goals and feedback today as compared to the annual appraisals. And we see an increasing rise in contingent workforce, which means that companies have to manage their full-time employees, the contractor workforce, manage talent on both the sides, skills on both sides, and of course, employee experience, capping it all. So Harold, does this resonate with what you have seen in Aker Solutions, and how did your journey really begin in terms of the HR transformation?
Well, thank you, Prashant. Yes, I think it does. I think all of those things resonate very well with what we experienced. We see the changes in organization, we see those changes in employee expectations, compliance requirements, etc. So I think all of those resonate. And I think from our perspective, what really made this relevant was that a few years back we did a significant change of our company setup. So we moved from being more of a holding company structure with individual companies in different geographies into becoming more of a global process-driven organization. And I think that was really one of the main starting points for us, why we realized that we had to make a change. Because even though we had a common SAP system globally, we very quickly realized we have a professional system portfolio supporting our organization. So, and I'll come back to that in a second, but just spending 30 seconds on Aker Solutions, for those of you who don't know us, we are an oil service company. We are delivering both projects and solutions in sort of the entire value chain, all the way from concept studies to design, fabrication, operations, and even to decommissioning. So the full area. We're working both with conventional oil and gas companies, but also increasingly in the renewable sector. So we are quite heavily involved now in offshore wind, carbon capture, and those kind of projects. So if we take the next one, just to give you an overview of our global footprint, we are currently approximately 13,000 employees in just over 20 countries. And they are, as you can see, spread all over. Right now we are doing a merger with our sister company Turner, which will add 2,000-3,000 employees more, and a few other locations in addition. So it's a relatively comprehensive operations. Okay, so back to SuccessFactors. Our starting point really was that we realized that we needed a tool for mapping competencies. So that was where it all started. We are running global projects. We needed to align on the way we mapped and monitored competence requirements. And that's where it all started. And then during the design phase, we decided to extend the scope. So we added a few more modules in our first phase. So we included performance and goals, succession, learning, and not at least compensation. And I think there were 4 main drivers, as you'll see on the slide, that led us into introducing SuccessFactors in Aker Solutions. I think compliance was a very important one, both internal compliance to our own policies, but also external compliance and overview of employee data. Efficiency, clearly, as I described, moving from a sort of fragmented organizational setup into a process-driven organization. Efficiency was crucial, and we did clearly not have the system support to support efficiency. And standardization, obviously these goes together. We did have a common SAP system, but it was used in a number of different ways, and we had a lot of other legacy systems supporting parts of our HR operations. And then these systems, or the SuccessFactors system, was used as an integrated way of providing the common processes throughout our organization. So that was a long answer, for example. I think that's it gives at least some flavor to what we did.
Yeah. No, absolutely, Harald. So I do remember when we first started that mapping the competency framework was something that was at the top of the agenda. And this is exactly where it resonates with the principle that how can HR be a trusted advisor, because that's the whole competency framework, especially when it relates to your technical workforce, impacts business directly. And that's what we started. We started off by mapping the skill and competency framework to SuccessFactors. We of course knew that user experience was prime, and especially since it was talent management, we focused on that. And we knew when we looked at your HR landscape that the core master data, or the position management and reporting structures, would need a fair amount of work before you could move to cloud. And hence, it was always about doing this gradually in phases and not really as a big bang. But yes, speed was of essence, because we thought that there were some low-hanging fruits like performance management, learning, succession, which we could achieve through some accelerators. So the roadmap that we kind of set up was start off with talent management transformation, which is performance and goals, succession and development, learning, compensation, and quickly take the system to the people. So you have a win there, because people get to experience the system firsthand, especially through some of these processes, which are very, very important to them. And then carry out the transformation in parallel in terms of getting the whole core master data in terms of position management, etc., together. And then move on to the next phase, where you do employee central, onboarding, recruitment, and of course Concur in terms of travel expense processing. And then as an art of the possible, we look at the future, where some of the sensitive systems like time management, timesheet, time bookings, which directly impacts business, which directly impacts revenue, field glass that talks about contractual workforce, these are something that we would leave for the future. So that really was the roadmap for transformation. So we started off in the first phase in 2018, 2019, and we did that successfully. So what do you think are some of the how do I say, outcomes that you have seen from having worked with talent management for almost a year now?
Well, I think we've seen a lot of improvements. I think we obviously as an organization, we had a talent management system before we used SuccessFactors, but we had more than one, and we had sort of fragmented solutions. But I think it was crucial for us that our organization recognized the process. So I think what we gained from this was an improved user experience. We gained system support for a process that we were in the process of streamlining. And I think we gain a much more efficient way of organizing that process. So I think both for the user experience, both for leaders and employees, but also for sort of the more back office or administration to the company, I think we've seen a tremendous improvement. I think we've seen it in several areas. I mentioned the talent management. I think our ability to visualize career opportunities has been important for employees, particularly with the increasing focus on the global organization rather than the local organization. I think that has been crucial. I think we did a tremendous change in the way we run compensation. This is just to give you an example. Last year we ran annual salary review for 10,000 employees in 8 countries in SuccessFactors, and I think we completed that entire process within 7 days. Now, compared to the year before, that was probably saving us 3 weeks of processing 1,200 Excel sheets, and not to talk about all the follow-up activities with archiving of documents, etc. So, I think we've seen a lot of good business outcomes, and also I think the ease of use of the system, the user experience has been very important.
So then some key considerations, how to approach a project like we have recently done. So I think one of the key aspects as a starting point is to be prepared for the project. Keep in mind the reasons for why you're doing this and keep in mind your expected outcomes. At Aker Solutions, we had a pre-project actually where we did a review of all the main processes from the user story approach. The user stories were created based on different personas, their needs, their likes, their dislikes and challenges. And we used these stories and the personas throughout the different phases of the project to ensure that the implemented processes would provide the expected outcome. As we have mentioned a couple of times, EC was not the starting point of this project. So it was important for us to keep in mind and to evaluate all the requested designs and to make sure that these will not have an impact of the future employee central implementation. When this is said, our experience is actually that quite a few customers are actually starting off with the talent modules now and not necessarily with the implementation of employee central because they are chasing the low-hanging fruits. Today, it is also very important to keep in mind the GDPR and to ensure that the companies are handling all the master data according to the GDPR requirements. In all different module implementations, there's several scenarios to evaluate, so it is crucial to start the dialogue and to assess the different processes and needs as early as possible. We have also mentioned, both Prashant and Harald has mentioned earlier, the need of competency model and to define a career architecture framework. Aker Solutions actually had a separate project going to define the competency model, and this was also crucial for the implementation. When the competency model is implemented thoroughly, it can be utilized in multiple SuccessFactors modules, and I can mention succession and development, learning, performance and goals, and recruitment, and it will enhance the usage throughout the system. For Aker Solutions, one of the key success areas was to utilize this within both performance and goal and succession and development, and I can mention, like earlier also mentioned, mapping competency requirements towards the different positions, position-based succession planning, and training based on competency needs to fill future key roles. And as also mentioned earlier, last but not the least, the need of implementing global processes. This, amongst other things, to reduce the change management, the training needs, simplify the support work, and to support global reporting possibilities. Harald, would you like to say something about the different requirements? I think at least we got quite a few on the competency area, no, sorry, the compensation area when it comes to how we can support both local and global processes.
Well, yeah, I think I'll just like to echo what you just said at the end here, and the bottom part of this slide, the importance of global processes. And, I don't think that can be overestimated, really, because, I think one of the key learnings, and maybe this goes without saying, but I think it's much easier said than done, basically, is implementing a global system only makes sense if you have global processes. Implementing something like this on a very fragmented process or with fragmented business processes is not really adding value. And I think this is something which has increasingly, I've been increasingly aware of that fact, and I think it has. It's important to make your preparations and important to be prepared to do some alignment and compromises. And particularly in large organizations with historical different legacy systems, there will be differences. There will be different requirements presented, and I think it's quite important to have a strong governance and to identify what is a real requirement, what is, for instance, a legal compliance requirement, and what is really a nice to have. Now, that nice to have might be very nice to have. It might be something that the organization is used to getting. However, in order to get value from a global system, it might need changing. And I think that's, it's a crucial fact. And you mentioned this, Tonje, on the not starting with Employee Central, and obviously that is a risk. It would be beneficial, and we've seen this throughout this project as well, that we met a number of hurdles where it would have been beneficial to do your master data setup and the Employee Central implementation first. But in a scenario when you don't do that, I think at least having the end game in sight, knowing where you're going, so you don't make any decisions in an early phase of a project that is a hindrance to what you're trying to achieve in the end, is crucial. So I think it sort of sums up everything you said, Tonje, but I think that to me is a crucial point, really.
Thanks, Harald. So, having finished with talent management, I think the next step was, of course, workforce management, Employee Central, onboarding, recruitment, and Concur. But at this stage, we paused, right? So we took a pause. We kind of said, let's look at what we've done so far. So would you like to talk about that pause and what the introspection that we did?
Well, sure. I think we were very pleased with the first phase of this implementation. I think we managed to achieve a lot of what we were planning to. Now, as we all know, the beginning of this year didn't play out exactly as we planned. So both due to the pandemic, due to the oil price collapse, obviously we as an organization had to put everything on hold, basically, all the projects we were running, all the investments, etc., and do some reprioritization. And I think in many ways, even though that was not according to plan, in many ways it was very helpful, because I think it helped us getting some perspective on where are we going, and also what are the main drivers. And I think this second phase, because over the last few weeks we've slowly restarted some of our IT and system implementations. I think the drivers are mainly the same, but I think we have a clearer view at this point of where we're going. Now, obviously, given the current scenario, cost saving is a crucial driver. It's the main driver. It would be incorrect to say anything else. But I also think that the user experience has become even more important. And Tony mentioned that we were going through a process where we looked at different personas. We're trying to understand how will this system work. I think that has become increasingly important for us. So, we had to go back, looking at, what are the options for implementing new systems and processes in a more cost-efficient way, but also how can we do this in order to increase quality and the experience for our organization. And that has been crucial. And I think one of my concerns reflecting on the first phase was that even though we were very happy with what we implemented, it was still only covering certain parts of our HR processes. So from an organizational perspective, we had improved the process, but we've improved parts of the process and not the entire thing. And SuccessFactors was really only yet another system that employees and leaders had to relate to, together with a number of other systems. And I think that was part of my concern, was that this was, a fancy system which didn't really give the entire experience that we were looking for. So I think really what we are, where we're getting to, is much more of an integrated full solution with that in mind. So I think, as I said, I don't think it has really changed our drivers, but I think it has changed our priorities to some extent, and bringing sort of the user experience more to the forefront.
Yeah. So Harald, yeah, you're right. So we did challenge ourselves on the user experience. We went back to the drawing board. We laid out the personas. We said that how can we make the user experience even better, and how do we really plug in these gaps, as you said, that where some processes are looking great, they're automated, while some processes aren't. And I think through that rather extended exercise, I think we were on the drawing board for almost 3-4 months. We kind of concluded that in order to give you the full user experience, one thing is of course integration, and second thing is, of course, how can we kind of also add on RPA or conversational AI like chatbots, and then make this different. But most important, as you said, the times were changing, and we had to look at a different model. And that model was the partner managed cloud. So we validated the solution and exactly what we wanted to do with the functionality. But we also laid out a financial business case that was a little different from what we thought earlier. So if you look at partner managed cloud, and which is really powering what we provide as HR as a service, I think most of the viewers would be, listeners would be familiar with what SAP provides in terms of the instance. We bundle our services, so we have a BPO offering, and we have been your BPO partners for many years. So we bundle the BPO services along with the implementation, the application support. And what we have tried to do in phase 2, which is currently on, is that give you a single window experience in terms of the pay-per-use model, use templates to give savings and make things faster. So we are doing recruitment at an accelerated pace, and we plan to take you live by the end of the year. The most important thing is that the financial case was constructed with 0 outgoings and a positive cash inflow from the first year itself. And it was a full OPEX model with 0 capital investment, which means that you pay for it like you would pay for a car or a house in terms of a mortgage. And then there is no upfront capital investment. And we knew that the times were tough, and then we had to fit the business case, the financial case, in such a way that we ensure we are giving back to the business in terms of the ROI, and at the same time, the work that we are doing really impacts people and really impacts business. So that was a challenge that we've been trying to solve. And just to put this in a kind of a more graphical perspective, what you see here is if we wouldn't have gone through the transformation, there's that red line in terms of the increasing costs. Having looked at the user personas and the automation opportunities, we look at the new running cost going down, because increasingly a lot of processes move to the people. But by moving these processes to the people, we kind of cannibalize the operations cost, and then we kind of give back these savings in terms of the fixed fee that we charge for the partner managed cloud. So at the end, you are really left with significant cost savings in terms of the transformation over 5 years. Now, this is the philosophy and this is the model that we've been working with. And we have every reason to believe that as we go through this second phase, we will be successful in achieving the outcomes. But looking a bit at the future and looking at this end state of the HR suite and what we really started off with, we did start off with the learning, the top, which is talent management. We are doing Employee Central, but we have a host of things to do. Get your contractual workforce in through Fieldglass. We're going to do Concur. We may look at Kronos as the solution for time management, which is actually the heart of the operations for a company like Aker Solutions, which is where you have a lot of projects. And of course, see how we can bring the story together in terms of the entire spend platform.
You are now on hold.
In terms of Ariba, and finally integrate that with SAP financials. So with that, Harald, any parting remarks in terms of how you see the end state vision, and how do you see this, see the entire HR function being transformed?
Well, I think I'll only say that I'm actually looking at this slide. I'm actually quite excited of what we've been able to do over a relatively short time. And I think there are, as you said, Prashant, there are elements here that we will look into in the future that we will complement what we already have. But I think from what we've been doing over the last 2 to 3 years, I think has renewed our entire IT portfolio on the HR side. It has helped us streamlining and renewing our service offering to our organization with a very good and efficient system support. So I think there will always be things we can add on, and we're not there yet. But I think looking back, I think the decision, even though not as well planned in the beginning as it probably is now, I think it has grown on us, and I think it has been the right thing for us to do. I'm very pleased with what we are seeing. It's adding value. It's creating good deliveries to our organization, and I'm very, very pleased that we together with Aker Solutions and Cognizant have found a very efficient way of both implementing, but also on the cost side, on making sure that we could renew our entire IT portfolio in what is a very challenging period for us financially. So I think it's both exciting to be part of, and also there are a lot of exciting opportunities going forward.
Thank you, Harald, and thank you for letting us be your partners on this incredible journey. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Matthias. If there are questions, we are ready to take.
Yeah, there's none in the chat right now, but you can also, we have at least 5 minutes, so if there's any questions, please add them either in the chat or others coming on. So there's a question here. Are you using SuccessFactors for competency tracking and confirmation per position according to regulatory requirements, or only for internal needs and requirements? That comes from the oil and gas industry, as you probably know.
Well, we're doing.
Yeah.
You can start. Go.
Din samtale satt på vent. You are now on hold.
Hello. Yeah. So, yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. So I'll probably try answering it, and maybe Harald, you would like to add as well. We are looking at competency framework for the purpose of HR, but yes, competencies also are required when it comes to some of the license to operate roles, right? License to operate roles in the sense that for certain technical roles that require mandatory trainings and regulatory trainings, and we are using competencies and skills to track some of these trainings as well, if I understand your question correctly. Harold, would you like to add?
No, you're completely right. You know, it's that it's both for internal mapping for our workforce management requirements, but it's also for mapping of mandatory training, as you said, certificates, things like that. So it gives us a much better overview and able to report on who actually has those certificates or training and completed training. So it's much more efficient. So I think the short answer is yes, we're using it for both purposes.
And that's another one. Are you planning to use employee central payroll for Norwegian payroll?
That's a good question. I guess that's for me. Now, possibly. I think it's fair to say that one of the reasons why we did not start with Employee Central was the fact that we did not consider the payroll functionality mature enough at that point. This is a couple of years back. Now, so we haven't made any decisions on that for now. What we will do in implementing Employee Central this year or next year will be linking it to our existing SAP payroll, not using the Employee Central payroll. But in the future, it's definitely something we will need to assess and consider. But it's with no plans at this point to switch to Employee Central payroll.
And one more. What are you using Kronos for in this context? I'm not sure if you already use it or planning to use it, but yeah, what's the plan for Kronos in the context?
I think that's for you, Prashant.
Yeah. So Kronos is an option for. So if you look at Aker Solutions in terms of the business, you will see that a lot of the time management, and more than time management, time sheeting is more a part of business operations than it is a part of HR. So in terms of you book time to projects, you also bill customers based on the time that you book. So what we are exploring, as I said, this is the future, whether we can bring in Kronos as a solution, because Kronos is a cloud solution, integrates with SuccessFactors, to do all these activities in terms of the time bookings, the time sheeting, as well as time management in terms of the clock-ins and clock-outs. That's the idea. But at this point of time, that's an option that we're looking at.